In the New York City mayor's race, there's a lot of outcry right now about Zoran Mamdani living in a rent stabilized unit despite his high income level. And this obviously begs the question of why is there not an income check on people living in New York City rent stabilized units? This seems kind of crazy to me as we means test all sorts of market regulations, government interventions, right? So why is it that there is not a income level regulation on who's able to live in rent stabilized units? Rent stabilized units take up 40% of New York City's rental markets. 60% of the rental market is in market rate rentals. And so why is that there's no income level need that merits that low income folks are in rent stabilized units while higher income folks are in uh, market rate rentals. The reason why is that rent stabilization was never designed to be like Section 8 or public housing. It wasn't meant to be an income targeted subsidy. Instead, it was meant to regulate the market at large. Stabilization protects the apartment, not the individual, so neighborhoods are not wiped out by runaway rent hikes. It's supposed to create a floor of the rental market in general in New York City. Anyone who rents a stabilized unit gets the protection no matter what their income level is. Even if your income goes up later, you still get the protection of the market regulation. The upside here is that you have long-term stability for neighborhoods. That's really why this was created. It broadly protects the community, and it also, by not having this income level uh, um, requirement, there's less bureaucracy in governing rent stabilized units. There's more stability and more predictability in the rental market. The downside is that it opens the door to rare but headline grabbing cases where you have wealthy folks in rent stabilized units like Zoran Mamdani. And many people obviously feel like those units should be reserved for people more in need than a state assemblyman who makes $140,000 a year. It also distorts incentives in the rental market. So landlords have less of a reason and incentive to invest in and maintain stabilized units because the returns on that investment are capped. You're less likely to put money into a unit knowing that you can't actually increase your rent if you make capital improvements to the unit. It also reduces mobility for tenants. Tenants often stay put in stabilized units even when they might otherwise move. This is bad for the housing market because there's less turnover and it tightens the real estate market in general. And it's really bad in general for the entire economy. Mobility is when people vote with their feet by moving, that's good for the American economy. By reducing that mobility is worse for the American economy. It also puts pressure elsewhere. So rent stabilization, because stabilized rents are artificially low, new and unregulated market rentals bear more of the demand and making those units more expensive. Rent stabilization protects the individual, but it does not lower the prices citywide. In fact, it worsens scarcity in the unregulated sector. So for every if there was a world where there was no rent stabilization in New York City, the unregulated market, the market rentals would be lower in general. Economists often argue that the only way to actually reduce housing prices is not these artificial safety nets or market regulations, but in fact just increasing housing stock and housing supply. Rent stabilization acts as a safety net and tries to create a floor for the market in general, but it is not an affordability tool. It is not a income tested tool.